go look for him.
You can call him.
I'll be right back, okay?
Okay.
Don't start without me, okay?
No, you're starting now. All right. When he gets here, he'll join us. Okay, you can introduce it to everybody.
Wait, hold on. Greetings, everybody. As you can see, my dad and I are wearing the exact same tie. They are tie-dye ties. In our ties, all of the colors are living in perfect harmony together to create a beautiful image. That is exactly what we are trying to achieve today. Each panelist will get 1 minute to answer each question, and I will be timing them from my phone. At the end, feel free to ask questions, no matter how controversial you think they may be. You can't enjoy food today, but you can enjoy our food for thought. Yeah, I'll let everyone introduce themselves.
Hello, my name is Maha Al-Bitar. I've been in the United States since 1989, and I'm with the Muslim faith. Okay. Yeah, okay. Hello, my name is Maha Al-Bitar. I'm with the Muslim faith. I've been here in America since 1989. And do we need more? Or
You could tell where you're from, like what center are you with?
Yeah.
How are you connected with it?
Okay, I'm with the Islamic Center of Boca Raton and any Islamic center, actually. And I'm originally from Syria. In 1989, I got married. I came here to the United States with my husband. And I've been there since.
Namaste, Sitaram. My name is Pandit Baldat Maharaj. I'm from West Palm Beach, Florida. I am the religious head of the Florida Shivashram Sangh of the city of Lakewood, Florida. We are a federally acknowledged charitable organization. We are a multi-ethnic and multicultural institution that has an outreach program, and our young people are very vibrant in our outreach program. I am here today to share thoughts and views based on the topics that my colleague, His Holiness Rabbi Barry Silva, has put together, with the hope that it may help us to develop a better understanding in the diaspora that we belong to. Thank you.
My name is Reverend Renwick Bell, and currently I am the chaplain at Hospice by the Sea Care Center in Boca Raton. I'm a Christian minister ordained in 2005, brought up Roman Catholic, from New York. I guess that's it. Oh, and the only reason they gave me some time off during work today, so I could ask you if you would be interested in volunteering, and I have materials if you'd like to volunteer with Hospice of Palm Beach County, Hospice by the Sea, and what's the other one? Hospice of Broward County. Always looking for volunteers. Hospice is very special work.
I am Rabbi Barry Silver. I'm the moderator's father. I had invited some others. I got a call from the Unitarian minister in Boca Raton. Unfortunately, she is sick. There's a Catholic woman who's supposed to be coming here, Paula Winker, and there's also Paula Veda. Okay, good. Paula's here. And also the amazing Randy was invited, and I thought he'd be here. I'm not sure where he is. So hopefully he'll be here. He's a card-carrying atheist, and I thought he would do a good job at rounding out the panel. Hey, Paula. Paula, you're just in time to introduce yourself, and Jane is here. Thank you, Jane. Actually, all right, you should sit at the end. Have a seat right here. You're just in time to introduce yourself.
I'm Paula Winker. I'm representing the Catholic faith today in preparation for the Pope's message to Congress tomorrow, and in response to his encyclical on climate change, I'm going to be saying a few words about climate change as a moral issue.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Jane Jishin Fasash. I am a lay priest and teacher with Southern Palm Zen Group in Boca Raton, and I will do my best to help you understand a little bit more of the Buddhist perspective or teachings on the various issues that we'll look at today, and I am honored to be here.
Thank you, and I believe this is being live streamed. So if you miss anything or you would like to have somebody else watch, they'll be able to watch it on our website. Okay, Ari, you want to go with the first question? We got a lot and a fair number of panelists, so we're going to give everybody 1 minute to answer the question. So it's going to be a good challenge to see if you can figure out how to answer these questions in a minute. That's hard for anyone to tell you that.
Okay, so the first question will be, who wrote your Bible and the claimed holy books of other religions?
Barry, I think I'm just going to give a little after PS to this and not be part of the panel, that you have another Christian representative here, I believe.
No, you can join it. You can take your minute. Unless you don't want to.
I'll pass. I'll just go on.
In the Buddhist tradition, we don't have one whole book. We have many, many different teachings, which are called sutras. Sutra is a word that means thread, and it's because in ancient times, the teachings were written on scrolls and sewn together, and that was how they kept the books. The teachings of the Buddha were first orally passed down through generations until they were finally written in the Pali language. These have evolved over time, and they're continually being updated, reinterpreted according to the needs of the humans who are existing at any given point in history.
There's a lot of different branches of Judaism, and you get different answers from each one. The Orthodox branch would tend to say that God wrote the Torah, dictated it to Moses. In the Reformed tradition, most people think it didn't quite happen that way. They think wrote the scriptures probably around, it was taken from oral traditions that dated very far back, but the actual writing itself probably happened around 300, 200 BCE, around that time, and then it was eventually codified. But some of these books date from earlier, but they were edited. So when the actual version that we have came out, maybe around that time period, we believe that humans wrote our Bible, and humans wrote all the other Bibles. It's the only creature that knows how to write is humans, and so we attribute all of them to human beings. Therefore, they contain human error.
In Islam, we believe that our holy book, the Quran, was revealed to our Prophet Muhammad through the angel Jibreel, and immediately it was, as it was being revealed, immediately it was written and kept. And we believe that all the holy scriptures were revealed to the prophets, the tablets, the Torah, the gospel, and the Psalms were revealed through the same method, through Gabriel to the prophets. In terms of writing, this is something different.
The Hindu scriptures was dictated by God himself according to the cultural history of our civilization. One of the most recent dictation was about 7,000 years ago in the battlefield of Kurukshetra by Krishna to Arjuna. And we have substantiated that notion on many occasions, scientifically and otherwise. Also, the Hindu has many scriptures, as we would refer to it. The Vedas, we got 4 of them. We got 18 Puranas. We have 108 Upanishads. We have the Shrutis and the Smritis. These are all texts that are possessed of methodologies that will, if empowered through careful study, allow us to realize within our inner existence in this human world the presence of that divine being that is responsible for our presence here on planet Earth. By the acknowledgement of same, according to that scripture, one is able to free themselves from the going and coming cycle of birth and death. In brief, that is how the Hindu scriptures happen to descend into planet Earth.
Being an atypical Christian, I would say that, of course, the Hebrew Scripture is part of our Bible, consisting of Hebrew Scripture and the New Testament. My feeling, and a lot of people in my theological circles believe, that the Hebrew Scripture was the people of Israel's testimony of their God, therefore written by human beings, inspired by their interpretation of who their God was. We also believe in the Christian faith that the New Testament was also written by human beings, inspired by God, or their interpretation of their God. Most of the New Testament was written in the latter part of the 1st century. People that never knew Jesus, never met Jesus, but were only told about Jesus. There are also books of New Testament which are not considered canon. Canon was determined in the 2nd or 3rd century by a doctor of the church called Irenaeus, and there are many gospels out there, the Gospel of Mary, the Proto-Evangelium of John, wonderful scriptures that are part of my scripture, even though they're not in the actual Bible. So I find the writings of Henry Nouwen, a Roman Catholic priest from the 20th century, also scripture, and we feel that scripture is constantly being written as we speak.
I'm going to have to interrupt this because I think I'm getting a message from beyond. My phone, I think James Randi is calling up. So I apologize. I think he's lost somewhere, so let me see if I can track him down. I'll let everybody else go ahead and answer the questions. Go ahead, Ari, pose your next question.
Okay, the second question. Should the government defund Planned Parenthood?
Oh boy, I get to be first. I'm not sure the Buddha ever had to deal with Planned Parenthood, so I couldn't tell you. From the Buddhist perspective, our primary precept is do not kill. So naturally you would expect that most Buddhists might be against abortion, or perhaps any other artificial interference with human sexual relations. But the Buddha's, another of the Buddha's main teaching was, don't listen to what other people tell you. Determine for yourself what is the most wise and ethical action for you. So as Buddhists, we work to practice very hard at developing our sense of right and wrong, and that in a given moment or a given situation, Each person would have to make whatever is the wise decision for themselves. Now, the question that Ari asked has to do with, do we have a commentary on whether it should be public policy or not to dictate what persons should do? Again, I try not to get involved in politics. That's not my job as a teacher or a leader. It's to listen and counsel people to make what is the best decision for them. So I would say at this point, both personally and theologically, I don't know what is the right decision to make.
From the point of view of Islam, Islam is a pro-life, just like Christianity, and abortion is killing a life. However, in Islam, like using contraception, I believe, is allowed. Like if you want to prevent a pregnancy using any method, it's okay. It's agreed among the scholars. And again, I will join Jane in saying, like, I'm not into politics, like how much the government should be involved. But I will say personally here, like we're having so many problems in the society with unwanted babies. And it adding a pressure to the whole society. And I believe the government should be involved. But how? Now this is the thing. So funding or defunding, it depends on the action, and each action should be judged, like how. So it's not about just this is my personal opinion. Government should be involved because we are all affected in the end. But how? This is what we need to work on.
Everyone, I'd like to welcome the famous, amazing Randy, who just made it here, sitting right next to me. He's going to join our panel. We're very fortunate to have him here. He came from Broward. I'm much obliged. We had two questions. Did you want to give any of your, if I gave his credentials, it would take a long time, but he's a hero of mine, and he's a hero of all people who care about science and reason and logic, and who like to expose people who are committing fraud and trying to swindle people. He's the man. He's been doing this for a long time. Expert in science, great magician, an author. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think that'll do it.
Okay, that'll do it. Okay, so the two questions are, the first one was who wrote the Bible? And the second one was, what do you think about, should the government defund Planned Parenthood?
First of all, I don't know who wrote the Bible. I certainly wasn't there, and I'm not responsible. What was the second one? Planned Parenthood.
Should we defund Planned Parenthood?
I'm all in favor of Planned Parenthood because I've followed its history over the years in various ways. Inadvertently, it's not a main subject of my discussions, but the point is they seem to be able to do things for people who need help, the help of people like Planned Parenthood. And I can understand that there are, let's put it kindly, conservatives out there who don't want anything done about this sort of thing. Women can suffer, women can give birth, they can not look after their kids can become criminals, wander out into society. They don't give a damn. As long as the child is born, that's very important. No, it is not necessarily important, in my humble opinion, that something should be done about this, and I'm all for Planned Parenthood.
Thanks so much. I served on the board of Planned Parenthood. I agree with everything that James Randi has said. I think that Planned Parenthood they should double and triple the funding. I think that what Maha said about the problem of unwanted pregnancies, there's no organization that I know of in the world that has prevented more abortions than Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood, by teaching and showing and helping people to use contraception, really has done tremendous work in reducing the amount of abortions. There's no organization, perhaps, that's done more for the environment. Because the number one environmental problem is overpopulation. We humans are destroying the planet. We're overrunning it. We're overpopulating it. And any organization that could help people not bring in more lives into this world that they're not ready for, not prepared for, and can't deal with, any organization that's doing that is helping to deal with overpopulation and helping to deal with the environmental crisis. There's no organization that helps more with poverty, because when you have children having children, it traps people in a cycle of poverty. And the Republicans should love Planned Parenthood. The Republicans should be all for Planned Parenthood, because I don't know of any organization that reduces taxes more than Planned Parenthood by preventing poor people from having children that they can't afford, that the Republicans are going to have to pay for, by teaching contraception. And they also have some great programs to teach kids all types of stuff. So I think it should be increased.
I agree with Barry, but at the same time, I'm not a politician. I cannot decide what the government should or shouldn't do. I'm not in a position to say. But there are, in every aspect of the diaspora that we belong to, omission and exemption and outreach. I'm all for that. And finally, put in legislation like the Chinese government and keep control of everything, and you will have less expenditure and life will be happy.
I'm against defunding Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is not always about abortion. It's about population control. What is more humane to have so many millions of children die of starvation throughout the world? It's a horrible thing to see. I've always been pro-choice. I think abortion is a bad choice. I think we need to be a little bit more responsible. We have an intellect, we have a spirit, and I think we need to use it.
Okay. Next question.
The third question. What do you think of the deal with Iran? Ooh.
The deal with Iran. The nuclear deal.
Probably a wrong color.
Great.
Gosh. Personally, I think it's better to know our enemy as best we can. If Iran is our enemy, it's better to know them as best we can and work with them as best we can. Again, from a Buddhist perspective, our teachings guide us towards wise, compassionate, peaceful choices. And whatever is best in promoting peace is what Buddhists would support.
Do I have a comment? No, I think not. Not in this.
Okay. No. You don't have to answer any of them. I agree with Jane that we should make wise, compassionate, peaceful choices. And the deal with Iran is not wise, it's not compassionate, and it's not peaceful in any way. The deal with Iran is a horror. It unleashes horrors. It funds terrorists. It gives them billions of dollars to kill people. Anyone who's committed to peace should be against this deal. Anyone who cares about the rights of others should be horrified at this deal. Anyone who is interested in promoting peace and protecting people should be aghast at giving $100 billion or $150 billion or whatever it is to a regime that has absolutely no regard for human rights and life. I'm committed to peace, and they're committed to war. Iran is like a cancer, and if you don't stop the cancer, it's going to grow and destroy. And the only way to save lives is by stopping Iran. The deal is a nightmare. 24-day waiting period, ballistic missiles that they could use against us, not dealing with the fact that they're funding terrorists and they're holding people hostage, that if you care about life, they executed 600 people this year, at least, because they might have said something the government doesn't like, or maybe they're gay. Anyone who's committed to peace should want this regime destroyed.
Okay, about the deal with Iran, the thing is I don't know exactly the details and how it will translate. First, let's establish like a nuclear weapon from the point of view of Islam and any other religion. It's a kind of weapon that is indiscriminatory and it wipe up everything. So it is wrong any way you put it. So you have to work. So it's not, I don't think any country in the world should have nuclear weapon. Not Iran, not America, not any other country. As for the deal, I don't know if it's gonna ensure that or not, so I cannot make any decision. And personally, since I am from Syria, my main concern, such a deal, it's gonna probably add to the problem in Syria, or because we are really suffering from Iran supporting the regime in Syria, and our people are being killed there. So that's my immediate, response. And I don't know this deal how it's going to translate, and I don't know. But if you say like it's going to really fund terrorism and it's going to help the Iran, then I don't know much the details.
All right, go ahead.
I have no idea what the question is all about, believe me you. This nuclear thing is really a confusing thing, and taking into consideration the impact that it is going to have, I think I agree with Maha that nobody should really be in possession of such type of life-threatening instrument. And I'm not really a politician, I cannot speak on that. I have no knowledge as to the deal, what is in it, what is not in it, but based on history and what was afforded through the media to the people of the world, I don't think that it is worthy of doing something like that. Thanks.
The word politics comes from the Greek polloi, which means people. So I don't have a problem discussing politics or religion in the same breath, because what affects the people of faith. Sometimes we have to step up, we have to change things in government for people of goodwill, people of faith, people just out there trying to do a good thing. I think that the removal of sanctions to Iran will cause them to have additional monies coming into the country for additional funds to fund the regime in Syria, which is causing so much of a problem. Hundreds of thousands of people fleeing a country from such an oppressive regime and trying to replace these people in different parts of the world. It's a horrible thing. I think the deal is inadequate, and it's a cop-out. That's my own feeling. And I've done some reading on it, so.
Okay. Do you think people of your faith go to heaven? And what happens to everyone else, especially atheists? Who wants to tackle this one first?
Let's pass this guy a different direction. In the Buddhist tradition, at least in the Zen Buddhist tradition in which I practice, and the Buddha himself said, I'm not dealing with metaphysical questions. I'm only interested in what will help people end suffering in this life. That being said, there is a long cultural history of something called reincarnation, which many Buddhists believe in, including the Dalai Lama, whose lineage claims that he is reincarnated. So that presupposes that there is something that lasts. Personally, I can't really explain it, and personally, I found it a relief to know that I, as a Buddhist, don't really have to worry about so much what happens after I die, but that I should really focus my energy and attention in how am I living now? Am I being of service? Are my actions beneficial? And so when I take my last breath, which I won't really realize that I'm doing, and then I'll have a wonderful surprise, or nothing.
At last, something that Rabbi Silver will certainly verify. My major activity in life has been investigating frauds. People out there who use the gimmicks, the tools, the methods, the psychological approach that magicians use. I am a professional magician, after all, by trade. And my business of exposing these people has always left me with a burning question, which I can now address. When the spirit mediums, or Reverend Peter Popoff screeching at the top of his lungs at 3 a.m. in the morning, which I've witnessed just recently, and he's put on a lot of weight. Oh, anyway, these people that they talk to from across the barrier never come from hell. They're always in heaven. Every last one of them. Now that seems like, 100% is a percentage you got to pay attention to. And I have experienced and listened to and sat at the feet of these so-called gurus and heard them call up spirits of the dead. Every one of them is in heaven. No one is in hell, or you would know the difference, I think, just from the sound of their voices. The point is, I find that percentage to be unbelievable, and therefore I find the concept of heaven itself to be equally unbelievable. By the way, Rabbi Silver didn't quite identify me. I am a dyed-in-the-wool atheist. I'm not an atheist who says there is no God. I'm an atheist who says I don't find sufficient evidence to believe in the existence of a creator God or any other kind of God here or any other place in the galaxy. That's my definition of me. I'm also gay, and I have had wonderful revelations lately about what our government and thinking persons can actually do for the gay community. I'm very, very grateful for that, and I guess that equips you better to judge what I tell you.
Do you believe that there's a God in any other galaxies?
I haven't been there. When I get there, I'll let you know.
Yeah, I should just mention, and don't take this off my time, I just want to mention that James Randi served for me as an expert witness in a lawsuit against the city of Del Rey, exposing psychic fraud. And he did it without charge, which I appreciate very much. And I knew I shouldn't have reminded him. We prevailed in the case exposing psychic fraud. And my yarmulke is really off to him for all the great work that he does in this regard, because these people were stealing the life savings of people left and right, cheating them, swindling them, and it's a horrible thing. It's good to have people like James Randi out there exposing it. As far as heaven, I look at things from a scientific point of view. I also look at things from a religious point of view. If there's a conflict, I'll go with science. Science is really accurate. Science is provable, testable. Every time you get in your car, every time you drive a plane, every time you put on your computer, turn on a light switch, take some medicine, it's proving science. Religion, that's another story. It's not quite as verifiable. So I use science. Scientifically, it doesn't seem like there's anything that happens after the brain stops functioning. And so I don't believe that the conscience goes on. I do accept the fact that our influence goes on. I look at things kind of like they did in the Bible, where if people do the right thing, then their descendants, something nice will happen to the descendants because their influence will be felt. But as far as an individual consciousness going on in heaven or hell, there's absolutely no evidence for it. There's no evidence for reincarnation. And if you look at the Bible and see what it says about heaven and hell, it's just hopelessly contradictory. There's even a war in hell, according to Christian scripture, and there's all types of crazy stuff. So it's just chalk it up to wishful thinking.
Okay. In the Islamic faith, definitely, it's all based on believing in the existence of God and believing in of the day of judgment and hell and heaven. This is at the core of the religion. Does every Muslim who say I'm Muslim go to heaven? Of course not, because everyone has to stand in front of God and has to be judged based on his action in his lifetime. So if they did good, that they go to heaven. If they didn't do good, because just saying I'm Muslim, it doesn't mean anything if it does not translate into good action. As for the rest of everyone else, after all, we believe that God is just and God is fair. This is part of believing in God. And everyone gonna stand in front of God, and based on everyone abroad, how much God has given him of, power, knowledge, and judgment. And if they live by what they believe, we stand at God is just and fair. And God only the one who owns the keys to heaven and hell, not the human. We do not send anyone anywhere. It is God's business. So, okay.
Wow. Karma determines where one will go and where one will come. Karma. God has nothing to do with that pipe. Because man is the architect of his own destiny. God has nothing to do with that. Everybody goes to heaven, everybody goes to hell based on their conduct, their attitude, their interactions with people, how they deal with others, the nature of their perceptibility, their ability to perceive things through the gates of perception in an undiscriminating manner. Those are the things that is going to allow one to enjoy heaven or hell. That had nothing to do with God. Thank you.
These are definitely tough acts to follow. In the Christian faith, traditionally, fundamentally believe in a heaven as a reward for behavior on earth. They believe in some sort of gate up there with St. Peter. Some Christians believe that you become an angel on a cloud. An angel concept is really from the Jewish faith because the first angels were Jews. So I'm very confused about that, and my theology is constantly evolving. And I am dealing now with 36 families in Boca Raton who are facing the end of life for one of their loved ones. And the question is posed, what happens after this? And the answer is, they're going to a better place. 9 times out of 10, a better place. A place with no disease, a place with no fear, and a place with no pain. So when someone asks me, what is after this, I have to leave it up to them. I just tell them spirit and energy never dies. We're not sure what form that takes.
Do you agree with Pope about global warming and capitalism?
Yeah, do you agree with the Pope on global warming and on his view of capitalism?
What's his view?
Oh, the Pope. Oh. The Pope thinks global warming is a major threat and thinks that it's a religious duty to do something about it. And he's kind of down on capitalism, which is probably why, and he doesn't like the unequal distribution of wealth, which is probably why he didn't meet with Donald Trump. Let's give Paula some time. It's a good time to get Paula in here.
Okay.
Pope's position?
I'm going to use all my time on one topic. So, okay.
All right, go for it.
The title of what I'm talking about is Climate Change is a Moral Issue. And I was first introduced to this concept of a moral issue in reading an interview with an atmospheric scientist from UC California, San Diego, who is known simply as Ram. He, in 1975, identified freon and aerosol as damaging to the Earth's atmospheres. In accepting a lifetime appointment to the Pontifical Academy of Science offered by Pope John Paul, this race car enthusiast from India, not of the Catholic faith, saw the Academy as a powerful source to bring science into religion. He said, "The simple reason is climate change, as we all know, has become a moral issue." Shortly after Pope Francis was elected, Ram received an invitation to meet with the Pope. At that meeting, he asked the Pope to become the voice of climate change because, as Ram said, he had become depressed watching the ongoing destruction of our planet without changes in our policies. Ram saw the Pope as offering hope to all of us who may be sharing his feelings of depression and hopelessness regarding our planet. Pope Francis recently published his encyclical on climate change, which he addresses to every living person on Earth. Tomorrow, the Pope will be addressing the United States Congress. He is expected to challenge us in response to our urgent crisis to join a cultural revolution, a new way of looking at things, a paradigm shift, so to speak. I don't know what the Pope is going to say tomorrow, but much of what I'm going to say in the next 2-3 minutes about climate change as a moral issue is reflected in this encyclical. I see two facets being expressed on what the Pope states. One is there is a very solid scientific evidence that we are presently witnessing a disturbing warming of our climate. The greatest impact of the climate change will be felt by the poorest 3 billion people in the world who have had the least to do and are going to suffer the worst consequences. Rising sea level is expected to displace millions of people. 1/4 of the world's population lives on or near the coast. You may be aware that in Miami, the beginning effects of rising sea level have become apparent. New codes are being written in anticipation of this new sea level rise. However, resources are not available to assist those being displaced around the globe who do not have the resources to provide for them. There is a great cartoon from the Awakening the Dreamer Symposium which describes the world population in a very large boat, partially sinking in the water. The front of the boat is sinking. A person perched on the rear of the boat at a very high point is saying, "I'm glad I'm on this end of the boat." But the reality is, we may distance ourselves from those who are affected, but we are really all in the same boat. When we speak of the environment, what we really mean is a relationship between nature and our society that lives in it. We ourselves are part of that nature. The second facet is that our lifestyle contributes to climate change. Even if you subscribe to the theory of the natural ebb and flow of environmental changes, we know that our lifestyle has an impact on the environment. Pope Francis states, humanity is called to recognize the need for changes of lifestyle, production, and consumption. in order to combat the warming of at least the human causes which produce or aggravate it. What are the human causes that contribute to climate change? Consumerism. 20% of the world's population consumes or utilizes most of our world's resources. We are called to be happy with moderation or less. We are called, I get 4 or 5 minutes, Ari. Am I at 4 already? Give me another minute or so. Oh, I'm over 5. Give me another minute, okay? We also is our attitude of entitlement. We are the best and richest country in the world, and we are entitled without being aware of how our choices affect the overall global environment. And lastly, our choice of public policy, our support. We make choices in voting for the people we represent. Rabbi Michael Lerner has developed an amazing environmental, social, and responsibility amendment to our Constitution. I have several copies here for you for anyone who would like to be exposed to his ideas on how we deal with and affect the deciders, the policies that affect our climate and our planet. Thank you. Sorry I went too long.
No problem. Thanks. All right.
Maybe I'd like to respond to that.
Everybody else take a minute and respond to the Pope, or about the Pope's position on the planet.
I'm going to use a very non-Buddhist word. Amen.
Capitalism.
In the Buddhist tradition, there is the person called a bodhisattva. A bodhisattva is an enlightened being who is awake, who gives up escaping this life into nirvana, so that he she can help all sentient beings until everyone has been awakened. While we talk about enlightened beings, really there is only enlightened action. And when we face the issue of climate change, when we face the issue of capitalism, and whether that is the appropriate model for economics anymore, then we have to think as Buddhists of how it affects all of creation, all sentient beings. That is the vow we take, to save, to nourish, to care for all sentient beings.
A few years back, on a posting that I put up sporadically and erratically, I must admit, on my website, I ventured to offer a few paragraphs saying that I doubted that we had the technology to read as much into the suggestion of global warming, that we had the technology presently available to assess that and to declare that it is a reality. Now, that was just doubt. I'm a skeptic after all. And if I haven't got doubt, I'm not much of a skeptic. The point is, in that particular tirade that I published on my website, there was nothing very certain. I just said, I doubt that we really have the technology available to know as much about so-called global warming as is purported. Well, the mail response that came in, it's always quite interesting, to say the least, and interesting in many ways. Almost exactly half the people said, thank you for supporting the notion of global warming. The other half said, thank you for being offended by this terrible supposition about global warming. So, from the same text, people can get two completely different meanings. Nobody in between said, I'm glad to see that you're skeptical about it. No, nothing like that. In their opinion, after reading my piece, which is only about 3 paragraphs long, they said, thank you for supporting it, or thank you for opposing it. So there's no way to get through to some people, come to think of it. These people here I think we can reach if we try very hard. You did a very good effort there. Thank you, ma'am. But that's the way life is. That's the way people are. So to this day, I still get a little note every now and then saying, mind you, I know that you're not in favor of global warming, the idea of global warming, or the opposite one, of course. And I have to send them a note saying, read it again. That's about all I can say.
Randy reminds me of the story about these two people who come to the rabbi with a dispute, and the rabbi hears one, he says, you're right. Then the other guy gives his position, he says, no, you're right. And his assistant says, wait, how could they both be right? He says, you're right too. So everybody seems to be right. I don't agree with the Pope on a lot of stuff, but I'm 100% on his corner on this one. He's got it right on. This is a moral issue. It's a terrible thing. Human beings are the most reckless, dangerous species the world has ever known. Global warming is way beyond disputed fact. It's overwhelmingly obvious that it's happening and that it's going to get a lot worse because the effects take a while to happen, and it's a horror. I don't believe in the devil, but if there was one, it would be the human. As far as other animals are concerned, what we do to animals on a factory farm is hideous. It's like what went on in the Holocaust. And Holocaust survivors have pointed out that similarity. It's outrageous. What we do to animal species, driving them extinct and destroying their habitat, is the most reckless thing. And it's very interesting that people who couldn't care less about the planet are always doubters about global warming. And people who care about the planet they tend to think it's real. It's like people who couldn't care less about their health always dispute whether smoking causes cancer. Because they don't care about their health, and people who don't care about the planet are willing to play Russian roulette and ignore the facts in order to put the whole world in peril.
Just one word, Rabbi. I think to include in my little tirade I just delivered that I have since studied the matter. I was sent a self-published book this thick, and I actually went through a good 2/3 of it. I am now convinced that global warming is a reality, and I just didn't know before, and I was expressing that, but that wasn't taken kindly as I recited to you.
Very good, thanks.
Okay. When it comes to environment, before the idea of global warming and what's happening today, 1400 years ago, it is embedded in the Islamic religion that we should take care of the environment, issues of conserving and taking care of the environment, of the plants, of animals. It's already there, existed, and it has to be done on a individual level. So it is already applied, and it is also embedded in the religion that anything proved to be harmful, we should stay away from it. Harmful to environment, human, animal, any way. So definitely we agree with the Pope on this issue. In terms of capitalism, again, the same thing. You have to know the Islamic religion very closely, and how about the wealth and distribution of money, and it's all about finding a society where everybody is happy and respecting the personal property, at the same time looking after the poor. So whatever capitalism, I agree with the Pope with the problem of capitalism. There are parts are missing. Well,
global warming. The Hindu view is that to take care of your planet so that your planet can look after you. You take not any care of your planet, then you will be the one to suffer, not the planet. The planet Earth has sustained us for millions and billions of years. Our relationship with planet Earth and nature is no more an option. Our rapacious attitude towards planet Earth and disregard for the environment has put us in this predicament. It is now our duty, our responsibility to respond in an effective way. This was the message that was given to the Parliament of Religion in the year 2009 in Melbourne, Australia, for consideration by those who were given the job to look after the welfare of global warming. My dear people, you and I have contributed to whatever situation we are experiencing today because of the lack of proper judgment, or not proper judgment, but matured judgment. You know, very few people has matured judgment. And when we lack matured judgment here, this is the predicament that we will find ourselves in. I agree with the Pope. I agree with the Pope on capitalism too, that we must be modest. Nothing wrong in having wealth, but do not let your wealth possess you. Driving an expensive motor car because you have money doesn't make you any different from me because I drive a cheap one. Anyway the horse goes, the donkey goes too.
I think the common denominator with the two issues is selfishness and greed. And those are two human traits that are not very attractive. I think the Pope, as the leader of the Roman Catholics in this world, actually, and a lot of Christians believe that he is also a holy man. For this message to be brought by him at this time is very, very timely, because unfortunately, a lot of the Christian people throughout the world are the ones who are denying the existence of global warming. So maybe if they hear it from the top dude, they might think about it a little bit more.
Okay. Is a Muslim, liberal Jew, or atheist a proper candidate for president?
Can I answer? Okay, this is easy. You know, the being candidate for a president, it's all about being impartial, being fair, just, considerate, rational, and if any person can prove that he has these qualities and he's not racist and he's looking for the well-being of every person in the country, if he can prove that and history of his action shows that, and he can present policies that generate goodness for everyone, what do I care about his personal belief? As long as he's true to the people of the country and he has the right personality to be there in this office.
I'll go. If someone is a Christian, Muslim, or Jew who does not believe God wrote the Bible, then they could be a proper candidate.
Oh, thank you. Oh,
if any of them, Jewish, Christian, or Muslim, thought and believed that God wrote the Bible, I would say they would not be a good candidate. I can't really say what's proper or not, but I think they'd be a horrible candidate. Because first of all, they would be irrational, and they would believe things that are completely irrational, and so their whole judgment would be off. But secondly, more importantly, they would believe things that are exceptionally dangerous. And if they were Muslim, they'd believe that all unbelievers will be tossed into a lake of fire, if they believed it literally, which doesn't really bode well for how non-Muslims would be treated. If they were Christian, they would think that Jews are of the devil and killed Jesus and have other certain problems, and they would believe that you should take everything you own and sell it and buy a sword. So they might become kind of violent, and you might also listen to what Jesus said about, if you want to be my follower, you have to hate your father, hate your mother, hate your brother, hate this guy, hate that guy. I didn't come to bring peace but a sword. You could be exceptionally violent. So if you took it literally, you'd be in bad shape. If you were Jewish and believed in Jewish scripture, then you'd have to stone a disrespectful child, execute people who are picking up sticks on the Sabbath, and do a lot of other really nasty things to people, and you'd invoke a law that was pretty harsh. If you believe any of those literally, in my book, you're totally disqualified and irrational. If you don't, then no problem.
I bought new appliances for a new house a couple of years ago. I decided to buy Frigidaire everything because they fit better in the kitchen. My refrigerator didn't work well. I found out that at midnight on Friday night, when I opened the door to the refrigerator, the lights wouldn't light up so I could see what was inside, which is the general purpose of opening a refrigerator door, you see. And I puzzled over that. I decided I would call the repair person eventually, but Sunday it was working just fine. So I guess I'd fixed it somehow, miraculously perhaps. Following week, exactly the same thing happened. For 24 hours, the light wouldn't light inside the refrigerator. Now, I found out by going to the instruction booklet that this is what Frigidaire had decided was the Sabbath mode. I don't have a Sabbath mode. No, I got around it, Rabbi. Yes, I must say. I called the repairman, and he told me, he said, oh, just look inside the door. There's instructions there. Oh, silly me, I didn't look inside the door. Ah, here we are to switch off Sabbath mode. I waited for the rest of the week. Damn thing was back on again. It was permanently in Sabbath mode. Probably knew that I was an atheist and was going to try to offend me as much as possible. In any case, I called them back and I said, it didn't work, send a repairman. The repairman came around. When he showed up at the door, very cheerful and such, I said, this is what the problem is. And he said, oh, again? He said, I'm going to suggest something to you. I can just disable the whole thing. Hallelujah. I don't use that term very often, as you can see. He opened up the door and he fussed around there and he said, okay, it's never going to happen again. And to this day, it has not happened again, because the serviceman knew better than divine powers, obviously, or was able to defeat them. Now, the fact that Frigidaire built this into my refrigerator, I'm a little offended by that. I would have found it better if I was able, at my whim, to switch it on or off, just for amusement some week. But that wasn't the way. What I don't understand, this is real now, how did the refrigerator know when Saturday morning came around?
The Lord works in mysterious ways.
Exactly. And refrigerators apparently do exactly the same thing. Being an atheist, as I announced earlier, ladies and gentlemen, I don't see any benefit in a religion. In fact, I will make a stronger statement than that. It's very brief, you'll be happy to hear. I personally think that religion is the major cause of unrest in society, in civilization today, and I'm against it, every bit of it. Thank you.
Thank you for that great story. Really tough act to follow. I actually would like, for myself personally, for others in this country, to think beyond the religious affiliation of particular candidates and ask themselves, does this person embody the idea of servant leadership? Servant leadership I originally learned about from the Christian tradition, but my Buddhist practice has really reinforced the importance of this idea to me. It's an old idea, ones that the Native Americans used when they made their decisions. But our politicians, whether they be state legislator, city councilman, president, etc., are their decisions made with the interests of the majority? What is going to be good for the most people? And looking even further into the future, will this decision have positive or negative effects several generations down the road? I think our politicians in general have been by nature too short-sighted, and that's the nature of politics, I know, but I think that we can begin to look for more in our leaders.
So just one, what was the end of that question? Candidate or president?
President.
Proper candidate for president. One would like to think that that a candidate for president is not necessarily going to be the president. Who's going to be the president is who the people decide is going to be the president. Looking at the candidates for the upcoming election, it looks like just about anybody can run for president. Just about anybody, which is scary. But the ultimate decision is in the people, which is also of late a little scary. But as I said, anyone should be able to run for president. But I believe a president should be servant leadership also, I agree.
If, according to Barry, none of the forementioned is a worthy candidate to become candidate of our presidential candidate, then choose a Hindu.
All right. What's the next one?
Yeah, choose a Hindu.
Should Israel exist? And why is there so much conflict over this little state? Should Israel exist? And why is there so much conflict over Israel?
From the Buddhist perspective, I can't imagine anyone that was Buddhist saying, why not? Why every country has the right to exist. Every group of people has the right to come together and live together, create a society that reflects their values and their relationships and their hopes and dreams for the future. So I would say, well, of course.
First of all, Israel does exist. That's all there is to it. It represents a huge number of people in a place in the world which is under flux at all times, as we know, and surrounded by all sorts of dangerous neighbors. It's in a position which I believe efforts by Americans and by our Congress and such to lend support to Israel are very well thought out, I believe. I don't agree with every decision that's made in that direction, but certainly we should encourage Israel and the people of Israel to exist. I differ with several of their decisions over the years, that's true, but they certainly should have a right to exist, and I celebrate the fact that they do.
There's a story about God telling the Jewish people that you're going to get this land of milk and honey and it's going to be a beautiful place, and they get all excited, and he says, well, don't get too excited. You haven't seen the neighbors yet. I liked your refrigerator story, and I liked how you kept your cool out of it, too. That's good. Anyway, I don't believe that every state has the right to exist. I don't think ISIS has the right to exist. If there's a state that's going after people and killing people, they don't. But I think Israel definitely has the right to exist, and I think it's an oasis of democracy and decency and dignity, especially for women in that part of the world. Why? And I don't believe in every decision Israel makes. I don't like the settlements. I'm very unsettled by some of the settlers. I think a lot of them are very right-wing, kind of dangerous people, and I don't think they put Judaism in a good light. But that has nothing to do with whether Israel should exist. It should. As far as why there's so much problem, it's religious hatred, intolerance, and it stems right out of the Quran. The Quran is pretty much saying to Muslims that the non-believers should burn in hell, and it says that if you, in that part of the world, they believe that's Muslim territory. So they shouldn't just have 44 Muslim states or 45 or 48 or 50. They should have all of them. There should be no Jewish state because Judaism's been usurped by Islam and it doesn't belong in Israel. And so you have people who, they don't dislike Israel because of what Israel does. They dislike Israel because of what Israel is. And you can't deal with people like that unless you try to change their minds and try to figure out why they do that, and it's traceable to religion. And so that's the problem that Israel is having.
historically that we believe in the Quran, and Palestine was the chosen land for the tribe of Israel back then. And actually the tribe of Israel entered Palestine back in the days after Moses and after they got after Sinai Desert. And over the years, Christianity came, and number of the Jews who lived there, they converted to Christianity, and then Islam came, and people also converted to Islam, and so many people went and settled there. So the people who lived on this land, they are the descendant of the original people who were there and others who went and lived there. And we understand that this land is the holy site for three religions, Muslim, Christian, and Jews. And they were three religions living peacefully together before Israel was established. And whoever liked to live in the holy place, they have the right, if they want to live nearby, I'm going to continue, they have the right to purchase a place lawfully to live there, and they can assimilate in the society there. So it's as simple as like that. Anybody can go and live as long as they purchase their place lawfully and they assimilate with the society there. Why do we have to create a country, an already existing country that had no discrimination against the Jews? They can all, Muslim, Jews, and Christian, assimilate in one country, and this country with government that represent everyone and represent all three religions and all ethnicity, and give rights to everyone and respect the holy sites of a three religion. We don't need to create borders and create, create this kind of, friction. Everybody can assimilate together.
It's a tough question. There's been some statements that I don't really understand. I don't believe the Quran advocates for killing and that sort of thing. I haven't done enough reading, I guess, but the Muslims that I deal with in the social justice arena, and mostly worker justice and such, are good people, and I don't believe that they stand for that sort of thing. So that's all I have to say.
I believe that everybody earned the right to enjoy freedom and sovereignty. The reason why it goes into chaos is because of our insecurities and our fear. No one has the right to lynch on another person here. According to our religion, according to Hindu dharma, ahimsa paramo dharma, that non-violence is the highest of all moral principles that one can live by. I believe what Reverend Brandrick said. I disagree with Barry. I don't believe that people should take advantage of other people. I believe that sharing and looking out for one another by knowing each other and accepting them for who they are, that they would be able to move forward in a positive way, in a cohesive way, as a people, not as an ethnic individual. And when it comes to the general consensus of things and we look at ethnicity here, it is going to create a serious problem. And that is the reason why we are here. We are here to break down those borders so that we can send a message to those administrators of this great world that we are part and parcel of, to allow each and everyone the right to their sovereignty. Thank you.
Okay, the final question before you guys can ask your questions. What should we do about ISIS? and Islamic terrorism.
First of all, the word Islamic terrorism, this is fundamentally wrong, because if a person really Muslim and practicing Islam, they shouldn't be terrorizing anyone. So ISIS, it is everything against Islam. Actually, the people who started ISIS, we don't know exactly what is their origin and what is exactly their religion. And all the scholars across the Islamic world have spoken against ISIS, and they call fighting them an Islamic duty. Actually, there is now a book by the title Refuting ISIS already on Amazon. A scholar have written it. So ISIS, everything they stand for, everything they say, it is just have the word Islam written next to it to damage Islam, knowing that these people, they don't have any Islamic action. Actually, they wear a spot, they don't even know how to pray, which is, the least thing a Muslim should be. If they are a practicing Muslim, they should know.
I'm shocked that anybody would say that Israel should just, get along, or that, we should all live in peace, and that that's what the problem is. The Hamas charter says that every Jew should be killed. It's not that I think that Israel should fight to survive, or they shouldn't get along with people. The Jewish people wants peace probably more than anybody. But when someone says they want to kill you, and when vast numbers of people, thousands of people are saying we're going to finish off the job that Hitler did because he didn't do a good enough job, and we're happy that the Jews are in Israel because now it's easier for us to finish his job, to even suggest that the Jewish people should just sit down and talk to them is just sheer madness or ignorance about what's actually going on. And to suggest that the Quran does not have in it passages that are exceptionally violent is just indicating somebody who hasn't read the Quran. If you were to say that the Jewish scripture didn't have violent passages in it, I would say you haven't read Jewish scripture. I know it's in my scripture. I've read it. There's some very, very, very violent passages in it. And anyone who says otherwise hasn't read it, or they're just not reading properly. And Christian scripture has many problematic things too. So the problem is that in order to be Muslim, you have to accept it as literally true. And if you don't, then you're in trouble. So I don't accept my Bible as literally true, so I can disregard those things. But if you believe it's all written by God, it becomes very difficult to disregard, and then a fair amount of people are going to act on it. One other thing that was misunderstood, when you said that you know many Muslims who are very friendly, I know a lot of Muslims who are very friendly. I did a baby naming for an imam. Okay, I have many Muslim friends. I'm not saying that Muslims aren't friendly or that they can't be friendly. Of course they can. But what I'm saying is the book is problematic, and if you take it literally, then there's potential problems.
We're not talking here about the Muslim religion itself. We're talking about an offshoot of it, which is obviously dedicated to violence. It seems to me that ISIS is saying, if you don't believe exactly the way we do, we will kill you. I think there's no doubt about that whatsoever, that they're against everybody and everything that doesn't agree with what their particular philosophy is. Therefore, it's a plague. It's a plague on our species. It's a plague on Earth, as a matter of fact. I think that we should do everything we can to resist this evil influence in our society. I think there's no doubt about that whatsoever.
From the Buddhist perspective, our core principle is nonviolence. That being said, however, sometimes the wise decision for us, the most compassionate, the best decision is to stand up to those who are torturing, killing, abusing other people, whether it be individuals, whether it be states. This question, of course, raises even larger issues in my mind. What is America's role in doing this? And how many more of our children are we going to be send off and be killed trying to keep the peace and to push back against people like ISIS? It's a seriously difficult and complex question, but I think each one of us in our hearts have to decide what is the best role for the U.S. to take in this situation and to make our voices known to our legislators, because ISIS clearly is an example of human nature run amok.
I'd like to respond to this one, if I could. Barry, I've heard you say many times over the years how each of us interpret our Bible in our own way, in essence, and have talked about the violence that is in the Quran and in the Bible and in the Old Testament and the New Testament, etc. So I think the question is, what should we do about ISIS or Hamas? I feel that ISIS is a part of what the Islamic community is. Just as in the Catholic and Christian community, we have a long continuum of people who want to go to war at the first, and the people who have war at absolutely no reason. And we have that continuum. And I believe that we as Catholics, as Christians, as Buddhists, as Muslims, as Jewish people, as Hindu, atheists, those of us who subscribe and interpret our holy books, our scriptures, our guidance, to teach us, to lead us, to help us, to work together so that collectively our energy can overcome those who are the violent ones. So that I would join forces with Islamic people, peaceful Islamic people, Jewish people, etc. And we bring our religious, our spiritual energies together and work together in a common cause against those who promote violence.
I think extremists, in any religious faith or in any society are dangerous. The Christians have a long history of killing and using power against people. Crusades come to mind, the Inquisition, where the Jewish people were the object of terrible torture, and not a great history there. And even more recently, I would say that probably 99% of the Ku Klux Klan were Christian people. The slave owners in this country were Christian people. So, there's bad folks in all different faiths, but I think if we, as people of faith, people of goodwill, I like to refer to my atheist brother as people of goodwill. Some people don't like that. I don't like to call somebody not something, because atheos means not God. I'd like to call him something substantive, a person of goodwill, another discussion perhaps, but if we stand together in peace, I think that these extremists will eventually fade out, I hope. I just hope.
ISIS, they are a parasite as we know it, but we were responsible for them taking birth. From the Taliban to the ISIS, we provide them with ammunitions, with military intelligence, with everything. And the cliche was the invasion of Russia. And here we are today we had to suffer for it. You know, had we left the people to fight their own war and keep we nose out of the business, we wouldn't have find ourselves being possessive of enemies in-house. Forget about outside. I agree with Renrick Ben, I disagree with Barry, that there is cockroaches in every house, especially when the lights are off. When you turn them on, you see them scattering all over. You know? So it wouldn't be fair to stamp that idealistic notion on those pages, but we must reflect. We must not be literate, because we were not sent to be literate here. We have to use our perceptibility. We have to analyze. We have to be analytical in order to arrive at the right opinion or the proper decision. If we are literal here, well then we are dum-dums. There is no need for we to have all these things. You know? And this is why we have brain. When we understand the mechanism of how this human system operates, you know, there is something that propels the operation of this physical system. I agree with the engineering aspect of it. But at the same time, there have to be some magnetic force that is propelling what is taking place in this human world that we belong to. And when we are able to acknowledge that, then we would be able to rise. And when we are able to rise, then we would be able to put all the dirtiness beneath our foot and trample on them down. But we are the cause for it, and we should find the remedy to eliminate the system. My mother always tell me, Sibita, prevention is better than cure. Nothing wrong in having the cure, but if there is prevention, there will be no need for the cure, and the economy will continue to grow.
We would love to hear what you guys have to say. If you have a question or comment, just raise your hand. I'll come over with the second microphone and hear what you guys have to say. You guys have 1 minute to ask your question and or a comment.
A lot of questions, but just one. In Israel, there was no Israel. There were just Jews and Muslims living in this, what they called Palestine, which I think was originated as an insult because the Philistines were the Jewish enemies. But in Palestine, the Muslims were not peacefully living with the Jews. How many pogroms were there before there was a state of Israel? Now there's a state of Israel, and it hasn't changed a lot. I don't think the Arabs were happy before, and they're not happy now. And about religion, I have this theory. People are using religion as an excuse, but it's greed and the hunger for power, and they just use religion as the excuse to come over, and they'll say, I'm taking your house, and my God says that's the right thing to do. But they convince people that religion tells them to do it. But I think if you go backwards and just until you get to the top, the people who start these wars are not religious in that sense at all. They're just greedy, selfish, evil people, and it has nothing to do with religion. It's just, that's the excuse.
I'd like to make a comment on that. One is that you can tell differences between the religions. I don't know of any Unitarian suicide bombers, or I don't know of any Baha'is who are going around chopping people's heads off. There are differences. You're right. A lot of people use religion for ulterior motives, but there are differences among religions, just like there's differences among different types of governments, like a fascist or a communist or a socialist or a democracy. There's differences. The other thing is that it's not true that the Jews and Arabs just can't get along. When the Jews first started coming into what they called Palestine around 1917, 1918, 1919, they were welcomed. The Arabs and the Jews got along well. They were friends. because they thought the Arabs thought probably they were going to have common ground against the British. They were friendly. What happened was Arabs who started to make peace with Israel were assassinated by extremists. And now you're left with a situation which is unnatural. I believe Jews and Arabs and Muslims can get along just fine in the future, but it has to be some difference. Things have to be done differently, but potentially they can get along just fine. They're cousins.
Yeah, this is Shani McManus, Jewish Journal. And I'd like to ask a question of all the panelists that they could answer. Could you give me one thing, just name one thing that religion has ever done to make this a better planet?
One thing that religion has done to make this a better, planet? A better world?
A better world.
The other evening, we had Elaine Shapiro, maybe some of you know her, speak at our Interfaith Cafe about the process of Yom Kippur. And I was so struck by the emphasis on the process of helping each person be a better person because of the experience of the Yom Kippur service and what. And I would say that that is an example of how religion and that culture and that environment is helping each person become a better person and contributing to our world.
That's a really big question and an excellent one. From the Buddhist perspective, just if I had to pick one contribution of the Buddhist religion, it would be the idea of realism, of recognizing that all of us are suffering, but that there is a cause of suffering, an end of suffering, and a way out of suffering. So the focus of the Buddhist teaching was on helping people in this walk on the planet together, helping us assuage our own suffering and each other's suffering. Not that it will ever end, but that we can help each other along the way.
Quite honestly, quite frankly, I can't think of one thing that religion has brought my civilization and my particular existence here on this planet. I don't expect there'll be other planets that I'll go to, but though many people have told me to go, yes, I have not taken their suggestion, not yet at least. But no, I really can't think of anything that religion has added, certainly to my life and to the life of my family.
Believe in the place that they're telling you you should go anyway, do you? Well, James, you should have been here a few hours ago when we collected a huge amount of food for the poor, and then you would have seen something that religion has done to make the world. To answer your question, as long as it would to answer all the things to harm the planet and the human beings, it's infinite. I did legal work for Westgate Tabernacle as an attorney for free. Westgate housed thousands of people for free, homeless people, and didn't just house them, they gave them encouragement and sent them back to their families, helped them get a job. The amount of work that they did was incalculable. These people were so dedicated, it was unbelievable. They were sleeping with the homeless, people on drugs, people that nobody would want to have anything to do with. They were there in the trenches with them. The Catholic Charities has done incredible work for the poor and the homeless. There's just so many things that religion has done, and I can tell you that my life has been so enhanced by having a father who believed in the beautiful ideals of Judaism. I couldn't even begin to tell you how wonderful my childhood was because I had a father who believed it. And I've noticed that from Muslims too. I've gone into mosques where people are extremely friendly and generous and kind because they've found parts of the Quran and things in the Quran that motivate them. And I know that, sure, Maha could tell you the same thing about her family.
it's hard to pick one thing, but wonderful thing about religion in Islam that every person is accountable for his own action. You cannot blame the society, you cannot blame your mom, your dad, and the best person in the eyes of God, the person who is the best in action. And action, it is defined as being good to your parent, good to your neighbor, good to your animal, good to your environment, good, and avoiding harm to anyone and producing good to everyone. This is how it is defined in our religion, not what is people try to stereotype Islam. And everyone is accountable. And but there are so many good things, but I can't now really mention one.
I don't really believe so much in religion, my dear people. I believe in spirituality. Hinduism is not a religion, it is a cultural civilization. Saying that, I would like to say that a person must be religious to themselves in order to benefit from what they want out of it. You see, religion offers, literally, following Barry's style now, literally, religions provide you with dictates that, if empowered, would allow you to be a better human being. We choose just to go to religious institutions for the pageantry, for the food, for the nice girls or guys that we might hang out and see there. And we forget everything else that was spoken about, that was tabled, so that we can share equally. When we walk out of the institution, we shake, we handkerchief, drop everything right where we receive it, and we go on. We're doing the same thing. You know, we are like pigs. We bathe in milk, and as soon as you see mud, you're going back in it. You know, that is the reality. We do not want to change. Change brings transformation. And we cannot handle transformation, and that is why we are where we are and how we are.
So as a product of 16 years of Catholic education, if I had to do it all over again, I'd do the same route. Catholic education is, I suppose, religion, but religion created a person of faith, who is me, and I have learned to connect my spirituality, my physicality, my mental, and my emotions all together. And if religion had something to do with that for me, and me out in the world doing things for others, well then, that's a good thing.
Ooh, there's a lot of questions.
Yeah, thank you. My question is really about God. And if you have faith in God, and you believe that God, the Almighty God, is compassionate, and we would like to believe that. And yet, a lot of horrible things have happened in this world. You know, we have the Holocaust, we've had famine, we've had disease. It's the old lifelong question: how can a compassionate God, in the same breath, create bad things for good people? And how do you justify that? How do you reconcile that?
Thank you.
I'll give you a Hindu view on that subject. They have a thing they call inherited karma. Karma that do not become obsolete, that follows you through from generation to generation, from birth to birth, from life to life. And that has nothing to do with God. It all has to do with you. According to the Hindu system, man is the architect of his own destiny. And whatever we enjoy was because of our karma, our actions, our doings, our attitude towards the achievement of the goal that we wanted to achieve, which we didn't get, our approach, our mannerism. All these things contribute to the disappointment or the fulfillment that we crave or that we experience or that we enjoy in our lifetime. God has nothing to do with what we do here. God is like a referee in a football match. And if you are the player of the game of football and you do not know where you should be at a particular time in the game and the referee sound the whistle, then don't fault the referee for being partial. No, you're supposed to know your position at all times. And in order for that to be a reality in our life today as a people, we have to discover God in us. If you were to look for God outside or any other planet, my friend, you're not going to find it. Because that divine energy is dormant within you. And through the gates of exit and entry, the senses of perception and action, we are able to search out and to discover, as we dive deeper into the inner chamber of the human kingdom, in search for that divine energy that is the source of what we do and who we are and what we are all about. This is from a Hindu concept.
Should I answer? Okay. From the Islamic point of view, first we have to look at why God had created us. And the story in the Quran, God decided to create a human on earth, and in the end they all gonna die and they're gonna resurrected and they're gonna be tested. So life on earth, it's a place of test. So whatever take place, it's as a result of our action. And actually God created, let's start from the beginning, God created a human with the seeds of goodness and, bad and goodness. So they are capable of both, and they have the choice. And God told them that if you do this and this, it's right, and you should recognize that by instinct that I created in you that it is right. And if you do this and this and this, it's wrong, and it has its own consequences. And yes, there are going to be some aggression and bad things, a lot of bad things taking place on earth. But the final judgment is on the day of judgment, and whatever is taking place, it's a test from God to see how we're going to deal with it, how we're going to respond to it, if we're going to support the right and go against the wrong, because that's our mission on earth. So.
If you read Elie Wiesel's book called Night, you'll see that a lot of Jewish people went in to the concentration camps thinking they'd be saved and thinking that God was going to come through and everything would be okay because he couldn't let something like that happen. And gradually, unfortunately, as they saw more and more hideous things and atrocities, they became disabused of that notion. And I mentioned at one of the services that the concept of a personal God who's watching out for us and pulling the strings was buried in the ashes of Auschwitz and went up in the smoke of the crematoria. That's a pipe dream to think, or to think that if you do the right thing, everything's going to work out. People are born with horrible diseases. People are killed by fanatics as children. To think that anybody's actually up there or somewhere pulling the strings and watching out for us or rewarding or making things fair just flies totally in the face of every scrap of evidence there is. Now, Einstein talked about a concept that I guess he could refer to as God, but he certainly didn't believe in a personal God whatsoever. And he did believe that there was symmetry and beauty and grandeur and awe, which evoked a spiritual sense. And many people have expressed similar thoughts, and I happen to ascribe to that also. There is much grandeur in this world, and there's soaring feelings that you can have. But to think that there's a personal entity watching out for us, if he is, as Woody Allen said, he's an underachiever.
Barry, whenever I hear the concept of a compassionate, all-powerful God, there are two things there, compassionate and all-powerful. I answer that with one word, Dachau. You don't need any more answer than that, really. Can I tell my little story?
Oh, go ahead.
I got a rather good story. It's even better than the refrigerator story, if you can imagine that. Yeah, I was not abandoned exactly, but I happened to find myself alone in my home in Plantation, Florida here, one afternoon right after the election of President Obama. And I turned on the television. I saw Constitution Avenue. And I saw the Obama family walking down Constitution Avenue. And I bust out in tears, as I'm almost about to now. Because not knowing what racial prejudice was as a kid in high school and in grade school in Canada, not knowing, I didn't recognize any such thing. I was overcome by the fact that I was watching television and I was seeing that the American people at last had recognized that a black family can move into the White House. That's a discovery, a major discovery. I just thought I would share that little story with you. I hope that many of you went through exactly the same feeling.
Thank you. Other questions?
My turn. There's so much to say, but I'm not going to do that now and take time. So I just want to ask, why do religious people think that in order to live a moral life, in order to take responsibility for your own actions, that you need an imaginary friend in the sky, making up an unknowable imaginary friend, who the only way that you can know what that friend is thinking is your own interpretation, because nobody knows this, nobody's been there, it's unknowable. So why, the bottom line question is, why can't we be good people, live in brotherhood and sisterhood without the baggage that comes with religion?
Yeah, well, I believe that you can be good without religion, so I guess that's not for me, so I'll give it to somebody else.
Well, I believe that you can also be good without religion because, you know, good manners and good behavior and good things, you can recognize it. And why I believe in that? Because I believe that our Creator, God, has installed this instinct in us. And if God gonna order us to do something otherwise than, you know, the good, that means He's an incomplete God, because He has to order us to do things that He created and installed in us that we recognize it's right. So it is possible for someone who is not religious and does not believe in God to recognize the right and work with it. The question is, as long as you live comfortably in your home and you have everything is provided for you and you have things going your way, you are fine. People in the past, when didn't find everything going their way, they always start to look for God. And this is not, this is going back to, if you study all philosophers from the early Greek, they always were looking for the divine. And in times of hardship, then the true manner of a person will come through. And unless you believe that there is other than what is in this life, it's hard to stick to your good manners in hardship. So the real test, when you are in a hardship, and only then we'll see if you find God. So.
Yes, I would like to respond to that question too, briefly. As I tell you, God has nothing to do with it. You do not have to be religious to be a good person. Very simple. You don't have to be religious. You can be a non-believer. You can be an atheist, you can be a skeptic, you can be optimistic. It doesn't matter. That's your choice. That is what makes us different. Rag and dwesh, our likes and dislike. So you don't have to be religious to be a god or to be a good person. No, you have to have a good attitude, mannerism. It's called behavioral culture. And if you have the right behavioral culture, God will reveal himself to you, whether he exists or not, because of that behavioral attitude that is flawless and beyond approach and without prejudice. The divine inspiration will dawn upon you, and you will develop the vision to see beyond what the naked eye could see. This is the Hindu take on a person being non-religious. Next question.
So I want to express my gratitude for this feast.
Well, thank you.
And appreciation for your minds and your I Believe in Souls that showed up here today and gave us this gift. I feel full from the gift of your presence here today. I had a spiritual awakening in my life many years ago when I had a very difficult decision to make. And being Jewish, I went to a temple. There was no service, and I just sat in the synagogue, and I opened the Bible. And the phrase that I opened to was, God honors those who question. And that was a gift to me that changed my life and told me that having an open mind and having questions was all that was required of me. And I want to thank each and every one of you. Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to go back to the Iran-Contra deal. And I'm a realist. And I heard several of the panelists say they wish there was no atomic bomb. I think we all could say that. But the realism is that we do have an atomic bomb. And it's proliferating. And at one time, we had the threat of nuclear weapons right off our coast in Cuba. And we negotiated with Russia, and we got rid of the threat of the atomic weapons and the ballistic missiles, whatever it was in the early 60s. Now we have a threat, again, of Iran potentially developing nuclear weapons. My theory, and I debated Barry about this, was you keep your friends close and your enemies closer. That the more we can find out about what their real intentions are, the better off we will have a chance of not them attempting to get a nuclear weapon. They never claimed they wanted a nuclear weapon that I can recall. They wanted nuclear power. Now, there are a lot of nations that have nuclear power. There are a lot of nations that have nuclear weapons. And I think we have a lot to fear from those other nations. We don't have to wait for Iran to develop one. But I think if we talk to them and start a discussion with them, maybe we can get down to more of a basic knowledge of what they really want and what they hope to achieve. Thank you.
We don't need to talk to them. We already know what they want. They want death to America, death to Israel, and they've already stated it. So it's kind of obvious. I don't know what you need to talk about, unless you want to talk about how they want us to die. Maybe that's what we need to talk about.
Well, also, we have Hollywood, and we have our own way of expressing our ideals here through Hollywood. They have their leaders who are telling us that, and I don't think the basic Islamic population believes what their leaders are telling them. That's their Hollywood.
Yeah, the people don't. The people are living under a tyranny. They want death to Israel and death to the U.S. They don't just want it. They sponsor it, they support it, they finance it, and they provide arms to that. So we already know what they want. Next.
Okay, next question.
I would like to know how to keep in touch with the people that are up there. Is there going to be a way for us to know how to reach out to them?
Oh yeah, when we, before we go, we'll have everybody tell how they can be contacted, or you can come up and get contact information. That's a good point, thanks.
When the congregation prayed with Rabbi Barry this morning, we prayed to God for health, happiness, a peaceful year. We have a dear friend who was very active in the Jewish area with the congregation, always went to shul, has a young daughter, came down with cancer, not doing well at all. Why? It does make one doubt. As this young lady said to me, I don't believe in God anymore. Look what he's done to me. Where do you draw the line between saying, if someone's looking over you, why does this happen to good people? And we're very hurt because this is a dear friend, and she's questioning God about why did it happen to her.
She questioning the wrong person, to be honest with you. She should question herself. Improper diet, lack of proper discipline, creates these type of things. Let me tell you people something. This human body only gets what you put into it. And it will only give out what you put into it. Nothing less, nothing more. Cancer is a disease that we encourage because of our diet and nutrition. And because of improper diet and lack of the proper human discipline that is required for the longevity of the human body, it is stricken with these type of diseases. This human body, my dear friend, is like a motor vehicle, and there is a manual for a motor vehicle. Every so often you need to take it to the dealer so that they can change the oil and flush the carburetor to make sure that all the lines and everything is clean and fuel is getting into the engine perfectly, so you wouldn't have misfiring in the process of its use. Now, if human beings were to follow that same principle, they will have a healthy life until they cross 100 years. So blaming God and quarreling with God for your behavioral flaws and for inflicting upon yourself that discomfort is not a good thing.
There's a book Elizabeth Johnson wrote about In Quest of the Living God, and in the book she explains a God as the concept of energy in our world, and that in our world we live in positive energy and negative energy, but that the concept of God is present with us in our suffering, that God is not defined as someone who only takes care of us and protects us, but recognizes that there are going to be hills and valleys in our life, and that God is with us in the valleys of our life as well. So it's another interpretation, another understanding of that concept.
I want to compliment everybody on the stage for having achieved a wonderful level of understanding and the ability to teach. If you want to give religion the credit for this, then everybody that follows the religion should be just like you. They're not. Anybody that comes under your teaching will do well. So you have a lot of people that think a lot of different ways, and obviously it doesn't matter what you think. It only matters how you behave. And I could talk about Iran just for a minute, just one statement, that those that don't learn from history are bound to repeat it. And we have learned in Iran, as in other tyrannies, that the people who get power, ultimately, if they feel the power is being taken away from them, they now rise up and become tyrants and kill the very same people who put them in power. Power is the underlying thing. Obviously, how they think is very bad, but their behavior proves how bad they are. So behavior counts.
Okay, anybody else? No, no, take it. Take the microphone.
I'm a guest of one of the economies, so I'd like to thank you, Rabbi, for putting this diverse group together. And I really appreciate it. It was very interesting and informative to me. But I have a question. As we pulled out last night, there was a notable lack of security. There's not a security guard. And in this time of craziness and terrorism and a lot of anti-Semitism, we both just remarked, how come? It couldn't be really a budget problem, because all you have to do to offset some money is ask for $1 from each person who comes in, and it's covered. So is there any reason why there was no security?
Actually, when I was driving and just now the policeman was parked on the other side.
There was security going here.
I guess that question's for me. We had arranged for security. Why somebody wasn't there at that time, I don't know. Why don't we take a minute, everybody gets a minute to wrap up, and then we'll call it a day. And I want to thank you for coming, and I want to thank everybody for joining us for the dialogue.
Okay, during this time of Yom Kippur, I joined the we in asking for forgiveness for what is happening to our planet. And at the same time, I am encouraged by the Jewish atheist Louis Newman, who talks about, in making amends, how we can be going down a path, and if we direct our journey 1 or 2 degrees, we may end up in a very different place. And so I think this is an invitation to, in the process, to look at ourselves and see how we might make this 1 or 2 degree shift to become better people and live a better life.
Thank you, Rabbi, for organizing this. It's been very rich. I appreciate being here. I would also like to mention that there is in South Palm Beach County an organization called the Interfaith Cafe, which meets once a month at the South County Civic Center. Rabbi Silver was part of the organizing committee of this particular event. So every month we have small table discussions about the issues of our times, preceded by an educational presentation by someone of a different faith on that topic. So I would invite you, especially this lady that asked about how to stay in touch. We do have a mailing list that we just notify everybody when it's meeting what the topic is. So if you're interested in pursuing the interfaith movement, dialogue, etc., I invite you to join that.
I can think of nothing wiser to say than something that is attributed to a baseball star that you probably know of, who just recently deceased, as a matter of fact, yesterday. And his very wise observation, his philosophy was, if you come to a fork in the road, take it.
I want to clarify one thing I said about the Holocaust and the animal suffering. Animals in factory farms experience similar types of things, but there is a big difference. Humans have, I think, a greater capacity to understand their plight. And also there were Nazis who were just vicious, sadistic, brutal people. So there were a lot of people who went through worse things than what happened to animals, but what happens to animals is still pretty barbaric. As far as religion goes, I agree with Einstein. He said that science without religion is lame, and religion without science is blind. And Carl Sagan also said, imagine if the methodology of science were applied to religion. What could happen? It would be a really great thing. I agree with that. In science, you start out with a question, and then you get rid of all the facts that don't fit until you get to the answer. And in religion, fundamentalists, you start out with an answer, and any facts that don't fit, you get rid of them. And so it's designed to lead to error. But if you had a religion which was able to evolve and to change and to be rational and to use scientific rational principles to it, it could be anything. It could be Judaism, Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Hindu. It could be anything. If you allowed the human mind and the ability to progress to be applied to religious teachings and to a concept of a power that's governing life, then you got the possibility for something really good. If you're not using the rational mind, then you got a very good chance that something really bad is going to happen.
First, thank you for organizing this event. And second, obviously, we touch on Islamic, or not Islamic, Islam issue in the questions more than one time. So I would love to extend an invitation to everyone. We have in the Islamic Center in Boca Raton an open house at the first Thursday from every month at 7 in the evening. If you have any question about Islam, you are welcome to come and ask. You will find people who will answer you. And more than that, as for you can for our holy book, the Quran, you can take a free copy translated into English with also some explanation, and you can read it all and come back and ask any question about it. So anything, would love to see you all.
Thank you for being here.
Firstly, I would like to thank Congregation Lavo Davo and my illustrious friend, Rabbi Barry Silva, for considering me to be an appropriate candidate to sit in this panel, and to thank him for allowing me to be his friend. Secondly, I would like to let you know, as the Hindu leader in Palm Beach County, the local Hindu leader in the Palm Beach Country, I am a Caribbean boy. I was born in Trinidad and Tobago, a little island way out in the Caribbean Sea. I inherit Hinduism from the migration of my ancestors over 170 years ago, when they came as indented laborers to work as slaves in the sugar fields with the British people. We have evolved, we have transformed, and so too is our culture. The culture in the Caribbean, the Hindu culture in the Caribbean, in comparison with the Hindu culture in India, there's a big gap, is without parallel, maybe, people. So the Hindu concept that I have shared is based on a Caribbean origin. And we have evolved admirably. We have evolved to become the governors of our own destiny. I would like to take the opportunity to invite you to my parish, to my ashram, 3585 Lakewood Road, Boutwell Road in the city of Lakewood. At present, we are having a 10-day celebration. Our religious calendar go hand in hand with Barry's. So, you know, whenever there is religious holiday celebration, we both are occupied, and it's difficult to visit each other, but I am sharing with you an invitation to join us as we celebrate the anniversary of the Lord of Wisdom, the birth of his anniversary. And there is dinner served every evening here. The pageantry is truly admirable. The camaraderie is enjoyable. And the cuisine is excellent. You know, ask my friend Ren.
And healthy.
Yeah. And it is healthy. It is vegan, Indian curry, very healthy food. You know, contribute to the boosting of your immune system and allow you stamina and stability that will take you longer journey that you are accustomed to. So we function start at about 6 every evening. We finish at 9 o'clock here. At 9:05, dinner is being served, and then we socialize for a few moments, and then we sit in the car and we go home. Thanks for allowing me the opportunity, my dear friend, to be here. It is really an experience. I have been in association with Rabbi Barry Silva for a long time. And it is, nice working with him. If I have to do it again from the beginning, I would do it without any change. Thank you. 3585 Boutwell Road, Lakewood. Boutwell Road. B-O-U-T-W-E-L-L.
Boutwell, B-O-U-T-O-U-T-W-E-L-L. And I have been there, and the food is excellent. Barry, I want to thank you for your hosting. Elaine, your family, just always very welcoming, and to these wonderful colleagues, it was really wonderful. In 2008, I looked at the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, and I thought I had found God. The old white man with the finger out to Adam. And over the years, the last maybe 6 years, 7 years, I have started to look within myself. And I encourage you to do the same.
I want to thank all the panelists for being here. And I do encourage you to see them in their native habitat. I know all of them. I've seen them. They are all incredible spokespeople for their particular point of view. And James Randi has a foundation in Broward County that's really awesome that you should go to. I really want to thank Maha for coming because she came on short notice. I was having trouble finding someone. She came on short notice. I'm much obliged. And I just thank all the panelists for being here, for participating in this. I thank all of you for coming here. We're going to do a lot more of this. We're going to do a lot more dialogue. And I thank Pundit Baldath for disagreeing with me and just telling me I disagree with Barry flat out, because that's what this is all about. It's exchanging views and showing the community that you can disagree agreeably. And I don't have to agree with someone to like them and to be friendly with them and to want to be with them. That's what this is all about. So thank you very much for coming.
I want to see all of you here next year.
We'll wear the same ties, all right?
To show our family ties.
I will wear that tie no matter what.
Yeah.
What do you do, sir?
Steve West. He was great, wasn't he? We're in for a treat.
Mary, you want to recreate this? Is it possible to recreate this as a form?
At your place?
Yeah.
At the drop of a yarmulke, I'll do it. It's not easy to do, but yeah. I'll only if Ari's the moderator.
Yeah. Phone numbers on.
We got it for his bar mitzvah. You know what his speech was about?